September 26, 1983, just past midnight, deep inside a top-secret Soviet bunker, an officer named Stanislav Petrov sits before a wall of glowing monitors. Then suddenly, alarms explode through the room, a red light flashes, a single word appears on the screen: launch detected. The United States has just fired a nuclear missile toward the Soviet Union. Moments later, 4 more missiles are detected. The computers confirm it. This is not a drill. Petrov has minutes to decide whether to report it as real, triggering a global nuclear retaliation. If he's wrong, the world ends. If he's right, millions die. And one man is about to make the most important decision in human history. To understand that night, we need to go back to the early 1980s, when the world was one mistake away from annihilation. The Cold War had reached its boiling point. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a deadly arms race. Both sides had built enough nuclear weapons to destroy the Earth several times over. Every hour of every day, satellites and radar stations scanned the skies, ready to detect even a single missile launch from the enemy. In 1983, the tension was worse than ever. President Ronald Reagan had just called the Soviet Union an evil empire.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
NATO was preparing a massive military exercise called Able Archer, which the Soviets believed might be a cover for a real nuclear strike. The government ordered its early warning systems to be on maximum alert, and that's where Stanislav Petrov came in. He wasn't a general or a famous leader, just a 44-year-old lieutenant colonel trained in computer engineering. His job was simple: watch the monitors, and if a US missile was launched, report it immediately. That night, he walked into the Serpukhov 15 Command Center, a concrete bunker hidden in the forest outside Moscow, with no idea that the fate of humanity would soon rest in his hands. At 12:15 a.m., the silence of the control room was shattered. An ear-piercing siren cut through the air. The computer screen lit up in red. Missile launch detected. Everyone froze. Petrov's pulse spiked. He looked around the room. Technicians stood paralyzed, staring at their monitors in disbelief. A single missile had been launched from the United States, heading straight toward the Soviet Union. Protocol demanded an immediate response. Petrov was supposed to call his superiors and confirm an incoming nuclear strike. Once he did, the Soviet High Command would retaliate, launching thousands of nuclear warheads toward America and Europe. But before he could act, the system flashed again. Second missile detected, then a third, then a fourth, then a fifth. The computer now showed 5 American missiles inbound. If this was real, they would hit Soviet soil in less than 15 minutes. The room turned chaotic. Phones rang, officers shouted. Some were screaming for Petrov to report the launch immediately, but Petrov hesitated. He looked at the screen, and something didn't make sense. Why only 5 missiles? If the United States really wanted to start a nuclear war, wouldn't they fire hundreds, not just 5? He also noticed the radar wasn't showing anything yet. The satellite system claimed the missiles were coming, but the ground radar saw nothing. Petrov realized something terrifying. If he was wrong, and this was real, the Soviet Union would be obliterated before they could strike back. But if he was right, he could stop the end of the world. Minutes ticked by, sweat dripped from his face. Every second felt like an eternity. Then he made his choice. He told his superiors it was a false alarm. He trusted his instincts and waited. The next few minutes were the longest of Petrov's life. He waited, listening to the sound of his own heartbeat. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Still no explosions, no impact. Finally, confirmation. The radar showed no incoming missiles. The computers were wrong. Later, the investigation revealed the truth. Sunlight reflecting off high-altitude clouds had fooled the Soviet satellite sensors, making them think they were seeing missile launches. A glitch, one small random coincidence, could have triggered a global nuclear war. Petrov's calm judgment had saved billions of lives. You'd think a man who saved the world would be celebrated as a hero. But for Stanislav Petrov, there were no medals, no parades. Instead, he was interrogated by his superiors. Why? Because he had broken protocol. He was supposed to report the alert, not make a judgment call. His decision, though correct, embarrassed the Soviet military. The incident was classified for decades. Petrov returned to his small apartment outside Moscow, his wife unaware of what had happened that night. He lived quietly, never telling his neighbors, never seeking fame. Years later, after the Soviet Union collapsed, the story leaked to the West, and for the first time, the world learned about the man who had saved it. Documentaries were made, awards were offered, he received standing ovations at peace conferences, but Petrov himself, he remained humble. Let's imagine, just for a moment, that Petrov had followed orders. He reports a US attack. The Kremlin panics. Soviet missiles launch in retaliation. Within minutes, NATO radar detects incoming warheads, and the US responds. Thousands of missiles rise into the night sky. Cities vanish. Firestorms consume the planet. Nuclear winter begins. In less than an hour, half the world's population could have been gone. The rest would suffer through decades of darkness, famine, and radiation. Human civilization raced because of a computer error. All because one man's finger hesitated above a button. Stanislav Petrov died in 2017, living modestly in a small Russian apartment. Most people never learned his name, but every one of us owes him our lives. Maybe that's what makes a true hero. Not medals or fame, but the courage to doubt the machine and listen to your own humanity. So next time someone says one person can't change the world, remember this quiet man who saved it and ask yourself, would you have done the same?